Hello, everyone. Welcome to today. Thank you for joining. I'm just getting a couple of things set up here. But thank you for joining the information session rather. Uh, Thank you for coming. Really excited to tell you more about the program and just give you a little bit more information about how it runs and yeah, give you all the information you need to know. I should say, by the way, the chat is open, so if you want to ask some questions, please drop questions in the chat. We really want to answer as much as possible and give you all the context you need to help you learn about the program. Okay, so look, today's pretty informal. I'm gonna just take you through a bit of information about the program and how it was developed and what our intention was, and then take you through each stage of the program week by week, and then I'm gonna pass to Connie, who will give you a bit more context about the learning, and then we also have a couple of former students here today who will be talking about the program and hopefully be able to give you some information about what it was like for them. And yeah, hopefully give you some more information and confidence about joining the program. Okay, so I should say first of all that we are recording, so we intend to share this. So if you do have to drop off or anything like that, you will have access to the recording later. Now, I should say that the program has now been running for a couple of years now. So the way it's done is a little bit different to the programs we usually run on a UX Content Collective. Most of our courses are self-paced, and we also have live workshops. And the leadership program is a combination of the two. So we have workshops, we have self-paced work, and then we have a bunch of different types of activities, which we'll talk about in a moment. And it is a 9 week program. So this year we're running it from October, or this cohort rather, we're running from October to December. And it is run and facilitated by Connie Wu, who I'll ask to speak in a few minutes. And really, the program is designed to give feedback not just on your content design skills. That is part of what we're talking about here, but a lot of what we want to focus on regarding the program is both confidence in skills, confidence in presentation, and confidence in leadership. So it's designed to give you some pretty comprehensive feedback about how you operate overall. So as we go through each week, we'll show in the schedule, we'll tell you about the skills we're trying to help you grow and learn, but also you get feedback on a range of these different things. And it's not just about, whether you can run an audit correctly or whether you can, create a great voice and tone document. It's really trying to help you understand, are you going about strategic initiatives in the most efficient way that are going to get you the results that you want? Do you understand interpersonal dynamics in your organization? Are you able to achieve, organizational level impact? So that's what we're trying to do. So the reason we developed this program was because we heard from a lot of people that even though learning about, different individual content design skills is good and relevant, there are always people who want to learn more. And also, we think that there is a gap. There's not a lot of instruction and leadership for content designers who want to get into leadership. So we wanted to understand, first of all, what are we looking for in terms of content design leaders? How can we help people skill up and level up? But also, how can we help the next generation of content designers sort of go into that leadership position? And so that's where Connie came in. Connie, who was formerly the head of content design at TikTok and led teams at Meta, came in and developed this program along with our co-founder Bobby. Connie, I'd just like to hear from you a little bit about, what it was like to develop the program, what started your process in doing it, and what you were hoping to do in developing the curriculum here.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to maybe also rewind a little bit, I'll talk maybe very briefly about my experience in content design.
Yeah.
I had worked in two pretty mature content design organizations at Meta and at Google, and kind of learned, how folks were kind of establishing teams, guidelines, systems, processes there. And then I kind of jumped into this new role, which was my most recent role before I started teaching with UX Content Collective at TikTok. And at TikTok, I joined as the first content designer. And at that time, there's no foundation for the discipline. And so being able to kind of take what I had learned, but also learn from a lot of trial and error, and how to establish a team and how to grow a team. By the time I left, we had a team of about 50 people reporting into me that were part of our help center, support content strategy, content design, technical writing, also like some kind of linguistic operations, like hybrid roles. And that was really exciting to kind of be able to foster that growth. And I really wanted to take some of those experiences I had at all these different types of organizations and the things I had learned that I thought were really important to a foundation of, either someone building a new team, someone who's maybe a team of one even, and kind of establishing a content design discipline within their organization, or someone who's operating within a larger team but wants to continue to grow and evolve into a leader, whether that's as a senior IC or as a people manager, or someone who's even at like director level potentially and wanting to like manage managers, and like how do they like establish all those foundations, as I said, to kind of help themselves grow and the people around them grow and the discipline itself grow. So that's kind of the idea behind the program. It's also very much a way for us to identify some of the commonalities across a lot of content design folks, UX writing folks, other like folks in like content operations. I think we actually have a lot of common challenges. And so being able to kind of approach them together and figure out like, what are some things we've actually tried in the past that have worked, and how can we adapt those ideas and best practices into our own roles. And then students, our amazing students, take a lot of those learnings and also these discussions that we're having, with each other, and bring that into what I know you'll talk a little bit more about later, into like a project, a challenge that they're facing at work, and being able to really apply those skills they've learned, and also take in some of the things that they've kind of heard from other folks and like figure out how they can bring those in. I think is a really great way to get real world practice at building those leadership skills.
Yeah, I think one of the things that am really impressed with in the program is when you think leadership, sometimes there's a stereotypical image you have in your mind about who a leader is, especially in a context like a tech company where, there can be a lot of very confident and domineering personalities. And one thing I really like about the program is that we don't have any, at least I don't think we have any sort of prerequisites about what your personality should be like in terms of, are you an extrovert? Are you an introvert? Do you do you want to manage people? Do you not want to manage people? Like these are all sort of things that they're sort of secondary to to what we're teaching, right? Like what we're teaching here is
Absolutely.
really confidence about how you go about leading, no matter how you do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really like that you called that out because I think it's very much about finding your strengths. We really like to think of the leadership program as providing a toolbox, and these are all the different skills you can kind of hone and continue to refine and maybe even add to your toolbox, and then figure out which ones you're strongest at and can really make you the best type of leader at work. Whether it's, being a senior IC who really loves to dig into the details, and maybe someone who creates like systems and processes, versus someone who's like, I want to really lead, and have a vision and be really like up front and center. You can be all these different types of leaders using the types of skills that we talk about in the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about the actual program and what it looks like. So, as we mentioned, it's a 9 week program, and each week we focus on something a little bit different, or, well, we'll see as we go through the schedule. So the way that it starts, as I mentioned before, there's a combination of workshops and self-paced material. But in this first week, what we really start with is a workshop where we're talking about the foundations of leadership. So really trying at a very basic level, trying to understand what do we mean by content leadership and how can we start putting it into practice. So that also contains information on creating systems and processes, strategic product and design thinking. I think one thing that I was going to mention just before, but I'll mention it now, is that leadership in design really needs content designers. There's a lack of content designers who are moving on and leading design practices overall. So we really come into this with a focus on how you can start thinking about that. So, Connie, can you talk a little bit about what you focus on in this first workshop and what people will learn?
Yeah, definitely. The first workshop, as you mentioned, we'll talk a little bit about, what it means to be a content leader in different ways, different models, maybe even like, based on what your team is currently like, how you can position yourself as a leader. We will be talking about a lot of operational work because, as someone who's kind of like has ownership over the discipline, whether that's as a manager or someone who's very senior on the team, they're going to be really influential in things like systems and processes. So that's, creating a content system, or at least, maybe adapting content guidelines into a system. Also developing a lot of the processes, such as working processes with tons of cross-functional stakeholders, as content folks often work with. How you kind of measure, how you showcase success, like basically how do you demonstrate that content as a discipline is important in a very data driven organization. And then also thinking a little bit more like a product manager or product designer, and being able to enhance a lot of your strategic thinking through content. Like how do you show more than just words, which when you do a really good job with words, sometimes that feels very invisible. Maybe people even take that for granted. But how do you show like a lot of that strategic thinking, so that people understand that, there's a lot of thought and process and influence that the content can have on the overall product?
Yeah, absolutely. And as we mentioned as well, the workshop is not just the only thing that happens when you start the program. You get access to a bunch of self-paced material on the uxcontent.com platform. So after the workshop, there are things you can do to actually go in, do some exercises on your own, keep reading, and you have that material forever. So once you join the program, just like all of our self-paced courses, you have that material. So that's the first workshop. And then we go into a second workshop where we're talking about actually leading at scale. And I think this is one thing that I know it's something that when we have spoken to content design managers and leaders about, one issue they see with people in sort of senior level positions who want to get to that next point is the scale element. It can be quite challenging, and it's definitely a different skill set. You come into content design looking at individual flows and individual screens, and you're very sort of heads down looking at the flow that you're working on. And then as you want to grow in your role, you're now having to start thinking about things across an organizational context. It's a very different way of thinking. Connie, can you talk a little bit about what we learn in this workshop and what people take away?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great summary. And just to dive deeper into that, like you said, a lot of content work may feel very heads down, very focused on, the words, the flows, UX best practices. But I think week two is a little bit of more that heads up, like looking around, like what are the relationships I want to build at work in order to make sure I'm able to grow, content as a discipline is able to grow, and then also the team around me is able to grow. Like for example, things like how do I make sure information is shared across the team, and we're thinking about mentorship opportunities and things like that. Also, in the next iteration of the course, we'll talk a little bit more also about people management in case there are folks, who are in the cohort who are really serious about people management, but just aren't really sure if it's a right fit for them. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. And the week 2 workshop also has a distinction of like, we have a lot more student interaction. We have like a section where we're just talking about facing common challenges and like potential solutions and how you can kind of bring that into your own workplace as well.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, the people management part is an interesting one. Sometimes we get questions from people who want to apply to the program and say, I want to do this, but I don't really want to manage people. Like, is it right for
Right.
me? And the answer is yes. Like, you don't, whether you want to manage people or not, the program
Mm-hmm.
suits both. So,
Yeah.
absolutely. Now, in the next week of the program, we're actually doing something a little bit new in this cohort. So, this week is where we will host an AI content strategy workshop. So, this workshop is currently offered by Diodora Blanche, who has worked at Coursera and Airbnb. And her AI content strategy workshop, which regularly sells out and gets rave reviews, is all about how to understand AI content strategy at scale. And obviously, this is a pretty important area. And this isn't just about how to, you know, use GPT to make your work, more efficient. It's about understanding the role of AI in a content strategy overall. And things are moving quickly, but we do think this is an area where content designers need to be up to speed. So this is where that workshop will be hosted, and there is a lot to learn there. But obviously, this is a fast-moving area, and so we don't necessarily want to say that all of content leadership is about AI. I personally get quite irritated when everything is just about AI because it really is all about the fundamentals. But this is an important area. And so this is where we'll be hosting that just to make sure that everyone in the program understands the shift from perhaps understanding how to move from a static content system to something a bit more dynamic, or how to collaborate with engineers and machine learning, because this is an important part of content now, and it's important to get that foundation right. And again, just like the 2 previous weeks with the self-paced exercises, you will walk away with this with a very detailed resources book, or document rather, that contains all sorts of exercises and information about how to do this in your organization. So, uh, yes. Okay. So after this is also where we're adding something a little bit new, where you will have a chance to meet with Connie one-on-one and talk about everything that you've learned in the program so far, and I think importantly also how you can apply everything to your own situation. Connie, one sense I get from the program is that students really want to understand not just, the principles overall, but they want to say, well, this is what's happening in my organization.
Mm-hmm.
How do I apply it? And that's a lot of where the really interesting challenges can come up.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like I mentioned, it's definitely very much a toolbox, is how we like to present the workshop. But how do you actually utilize and, apply those tools in your specific situation? I think it can help sometimes to just have a one-on-one discussion and chat through some of those things. Especially we do group Q&As. But sometimes it helps to also have that one-on-one kind of more in-depth conversation about things. And so that's the idea behind, using this time to maybe think through a specific challenge, or it can also be a topic that you're thinking about, like career growth, or, how do I kind of move past specific challenges on this project? And this is a great opportunity and time for us to kind of talk through some of those things together.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I know that one of the pieces of feedback I've heard from previous students is that they get a lot of value, like in a workshop experience where they're able to ask about how their work applies to what they're doing, or how the workshop or program applies to what they're doing. So this is a chance to to just even do more of that.
Mm.
Uh, Excuse me, there's a bit of a typo there. I don't know, my weak numbers have gone crazy. So at this point, you basically get a little bit of time now in the program to work on your final project, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But one thing we do is for the final project is we make sure that as you move through the program, you talk to us about your idea for your project and we give you feedback on it because as we'll discuss when you get to that final project, it is a pretty comprehensive project and there is a lot of work that goes into it. I personally have been really impressed by the projects that I've seen from students who are doing this program. Some of them are incredibly extensive and they are based on all the work that they're doing in their own organizations. So we like to give everyone some time to work on those projects. And then you'll have to excuse me. I don't know why my weeks have gone haywire. I'm so sorry. So week 5 is a one-on-one with Connie. Then week 6, you'll get time to work on your project, and then you'll have an opportunity to meet with me, yours truly, one-on-one. And I should say that this meeting is not about the course material. It is about the final project. So it's about understanding how to put yourself in the best position because, as we're about to discuss, you will be presenting to a panel of people some of, or most of whom have not been involved in the program and are coming to
Mhm.
this from their own context without any sort of understanding of what you've learned in the program. And it's really just trying to understand your presentation in itself. So it's really important to get that right. And also, it's an opportunity to get some pretty extensive and useful feedback. So you'll be able to meet with me if you would like to, ask some questions, and then you'll have a bit more time, and then you get to the panel presentation. So this is I guess, the crown jewel of the project, and the idea is that we want to give you the opportunity to do something that you really don't get to do when attending a conference or even just asking someone something on your own. What we want to do is give you the opportunity to present a strategic plan like you would in your own organization, but obviously without the potential consequences if things should go wrong. We want to be able to give you exposure to some pretty experienced and talented content designers who can give you feedback on not just your plan, but also your ability to present it, your ability to answer questions, your ability to project confidence in what it is that you're doing, to the ability to anticipate issues or problems that come up. And as you can see on the slide here, some of our previous graders have included some pretty experienced people in the industry, Scott Kuby, Andy Welfley, Sophie Taryn, who leads UX writing at Figma. Uh, there are a lot of different organizations represented here, and that I think experience has been a huge benefit to people doing the presentations, as we're about to hear from some of our students. And the idea here is that whatever plan you do is actually yours. You get to choose whatever plan you want to do. I mean, I've seen plans that range from, I think there was one student who had an extensive plan to locate all of the strings in in their product and then combine them into a central repository because they were scattered throughout the organization. That was a very impressive one. Connie, I don't know if any come to mind for you, but I just know that the scale and the scope of these presentations is pretty impressive.
Yeah, we've seen some really, really impressive presentations, including, a couple from some of the students that are on the webinar with us today, and creating like a whole kind of voice and tone identity, creating like a whole like product kind of like experience through content. Like, how do we do a content forward or focused kind of strategy on like this brand? Um, they're all been really impressive, but I would also say they're like this is such a great forum and opportunity to get a ton of really valuable feedback from these like really incredible and experienced content designers, and like Patrick said, kind of in a safe space because
Hmm.
um, potentially maybe you want to put this in your portfolio someday, or you want to present this at work. Like it's a great place to kind of not only utilize a lot of the skills and learnings from the workshop, but then also maybe refine that presentation so it can have the most impact in whatever forum or channel you're planning to share it in. So it's been really really great. I feel I've seen all the students grow so much like throughout the course of the workshop, and then to have it all culminate in that final panel presentation. I think it's really rewarding for me and hopefully very rewarding for each of the students as well.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I think the panel presentation does really well is it prepares students for all of the types of questions and scrutiny they're going to have in their own companies,
Mhm.
because making organizational level impact is not easy, and you have to anticipate a lot of problems that are going to come up. And we really encourage students in the program think bigger than, creating, say, creating like a voice and tone document, for instance. That's important work, but what we're talking about here is trying to create something at an organizational level. And so what does it mean to actually work with different departments and anticipate those problems? And it gives students the opportunity to practice. If they have like a dream project that they would like to do, it enables them to get feedback on that without necessarily burning bridges in their organization if they want to make some mistakes along the way, as everyone does, right? So, and the other thing too, I think the presentation does really well is that it helps you in your career going forward. It's not just about the presentation that you're making right now or the plan that you're doing right now. The feedback that some of our presenters give is quite broad and it's overarching feedback, not just about this particular plan, but also about how you will do this in the future. So it's really advice that you will take with you for the rest of your career.
Yes.
And yeah, we've gotten some really great feedback from students about their experiences with this. And actually, that leads us to what I'd like to do now and throw to a couple of our former students. So, Sarita, I'd like to start with you, and I'd love to hear a little bit from you about what your experience was like in the program and what you took away from it, and yeah, just what your overall experience was like.
Absolutely. Excuse me. My experience was transformational, and I mean that. I came in kind of thrust into a leadership position within my organization, solo UX writer, lead, everything, just doing everything and not really having a lot of foundation that had been previously built. And I had taken some classes with UX Content Collective before that. And so when I saw this opportunity come across my screen, I was really excited to jump on. I learned so many things. I learned about leadership skills, things like growing a team and encouraging and mentoring a team of people that I would one day or will one day bring under me, but then also what it looks like to engage with leadership at different levels within the organization. Because being new to that space, I was a little scared, honestly, because I'd never done it before. But coming into this space with people who were where I was, people who were further along than me, and also industry leaders was like a huge game changer. So I got to be vulnerable and share my thoughts and ideas without having to worry if it was right or wrong, but really just getting good honest feedback, things that were extremely helpful for my growth. And I can't speak enough about um, that project, because when I got the first got the information like this is what you're going to do, I was like, oh my gosh, like what am I? But I was encouraged to use what I knew, but then also the Connie and others really poured into me and talked me through the beginning stages of my idea that I had and helps me to grow it. And I walked away from this class with a personalized plan that I created myself for growing content design, maturing content design within my organization. It was a huge deal. It was a game changer for my career, for my confidence. And the best part about the plan was that it had been vetted by industry leaders. So when I shared it with my organization, I didn't have to wonder, like, no, some of the biggest names in the game already gave me the seal of approval. I know this is gold. So I got to walk in still humble, but very confident. So I'm really grateful to the program.
Man, that's awesome to hear. I'm really happy to hear that. I think the thing that really stuck out to me from what you just said was the ability to get feedback in that safe space and be vulnerable with people because as you know, when you're in a role and you want to do like a major plan, sometimes when you go to like your manager or someone above you and you say, "Hey, I'd really like to do this," and it's not fully formed yet, sometimes that can be quite a challenge because, if it's not fully formed or if it's not right yet, you might hear people saying, I don't know about that. And that can really, have affect the first impression of your project. But being able to sort of incubate your idea in an environment with other content designers can, yeah, as you mentioned, really help you with that confidence, knowing that you can go back and say, now I've gotten feedback on this. People in the industry know that it's good. I know what I'm doing here.
Yes, yes.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Sarita, for sharing. Tess, I'd really love to hear from you as well about what your experience was like and yeah, what you got from the program too.
Yeah, great. Hi everyone, and definitely aligned with Sarita on the experience. So, I am a huge fan of the UX Content Collective. Can say that that's just a resounding yes across the board. So when I heard about the leadership course, I was really excited. I've been in both an individual contributor role and in management roles, and I know this has been shared, but it really doesn't matter which direction or where you fall on that spectrum. The leadership skills you gain are going to serve you, no matter where your preference falls there. So, what I really loved, well, always the courses are really thoughtful and structured, and the materials. Having access to resources and just having a network after the course is incredible. I really enjoyed that it focused on not only like the emotional intelligence, building relationships, networking, challenges, success, but also like the operational and strategic thinking that comes with like the comprehensive package of leadership. So this course definitely strikes at that, and you definitely get a sense for that. Um, and then, of course, the final project. Was really excited and a little bit nervous, admittedly, but my gosh, what a great opportunity. So, yeah, I do recall you or we got a full hour with the panel, and there's time for questions at the end. And I remember being asked one question on my final project that has really stuck with me. And, here I am amped presenting my deck, really excited, just like happy about the idea. And I was asked, now, why wouldn't you do this? And I hadn't thought that through. And I realized that is such an important angle to consider when you're presenting to stakeholders, because here you are with your idea and you're putting everything forward, and you really have to think strategically from a business mindset. Like, what are the things that are going to hold that back, or what are our customers thinking that we're not focused on as an org? So just like the full picture, and really, uh, you get great experience. Just developing yourself professionally and the network that you build from a course like this, it's so valuable. So I'm a huge fan, and I definitely encourage considering it, because I've benefited tremendously, and it's just great all around. So yeah.
Well, we're huge fans of you, Tess. But that's awesome to hear that the impact even just one question has had on you. I think there are a lot of people who can who can attest that there's just that one comment from someone or that one that one piece of feedback that really changes your entire perspective on how you do this work, and sounds like something you're going to take with you for the rest of your career. So that's awesome. Thank you both for sharing. Really, really love hearing how well the program has stuck with you. Um, Look, we do have time for questions. We haven't had any in the chat, so I don't know if there are any questions. A few questions, common questions that come up, include things like, okay, this sounds good. What about any type of payment plan or assistance? And we do offer payment plans for the enrollment. So if you are interested in that, we will definitely work with you on that. Some other questions include, what type of commitment does it look like in terms of time? And I will say that the two workshops, or the three workshops rather, are 4 hours each. So there are three 4 hour workshops, and the self-paced material will take, I would say about that same amount of time. With regard to the final project, what we would say is that the amount of time you put in is equal to the output you're going to get. And so we've had people who spend, tens of hours on their final project because it's an opportunity to get feedback from people in the industry. So we'd say, it's a pretty significant input of time. The good thing about the final project, of course, is that you can work on it on your schedule. So you don't have to do it in a particularly set time. You can work on that final project through the 9 weeks of the program. So you can sort of, whether you like to do it at a bit at a time or whether you want to do it very rushed in the week before, it's really up to you. I personally would recommend a little bit more of a balance, but whatever works for you. Some other questions I know we've had in the past include, what type of time do you get to discuss like personal issues rather than sort of learning overall leadership issues? And I would say a little bit, obviously, in the workshops themselves, it's focused on the overall leadership questions and the curriculum, but as we mentioned, you do get time to speak with Connie one on one. There is also, and my slides weren't quite working, so I'm sorry we didn't go over this. There is a Q&A session with Connie in the program where everyone gets to join and ask questions. So everyone will get to benefit from a Q&A, and then along with the one-to-one. So there is that Q&A session as well. Um, Connie, I'm just thinking, can you think of any other common questions that students come to you with about the program?
Um, I think just going back to the final project, one thing also that I've seen is some students come in with an existing challenge, like something they've thought about even, as they're applying to the leadership program or, once they know they're going to be joining the program. And that can be really helpful to have in your sights as you're kind of learning or going through the LMS material, sorry, the self-paced material and the workshops, so that you can kind of be thinking about like how can I apply some of these like best practices or different approaches to this like existing challenge that I have. Also, a lot of folks will tell us like, do I have to bring in an existing project that I already completed, or could it be something totally new that I'm going to approach like through the course of this leadership program? And it can really be either. Although I do feel it's trending more and more now towards like new challenges. That's what I'm
Hmm.
kind of seeing in some of the cohorts or in more of the cohorts now is that folks are kind of taking on a new and bigger challenge that they're thinking about and kind of utilizing a lot of the best practices they're learning to try to figure out how to approach that when they bring it, back into their workplace. But either type of scenario can definitely work. It just allows us to kind of see how you showcase a lot of the skills that we're talking about through the course. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
Any more
I think that's a
comments
good
on that?
point. It can be useful to revisit something you've done in the past, but
Totally,
I think
absolutely.
given the opportunity, it also makes sense to even think a little bit bigger and talk about what you want to do in the future, and maybe a project you have in mind does both of those things. But yeah, I agree. We've seen a trend more towards like I have this big picture thing that I want to do. How can I actually go about doing it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that sort of brings us to the end of our information session today. I hope this has provided everyone with a little bit more context about the program and a little bit more confidence about whether you want to apply or not. I encourage you to. I think everyone should, but of course, I'm biased. Um, Connie, thank you so much for giving everyone a little bit more context about the program and a little bit more information. We are always here to answer questions about everything. Sarita and Tess, thank you very much for sharing your experience.
Thank you so
I
much.
know Connie loved having you in the program, and
Yes.
the fact that you're able to say such nice things about it, even after, the cohorts you were in, is well, it makes me feel good. I'm sure it makes Connie feel good as well.
For
So I'm
sure.
so glad you both got heaps of value from it. Um, I should say, if you're watching this and you have more questions, please reach out to us, info@uxcontent.com. We're absolutely happy to answer any more questions you have about the program, and we really want to help you. And if you are working with your companies to get reimbursements and so on, we're absolutely happy to work with you in that process, and can answer any questions you have. All right, well, we'll leave it there. Thanks again, everyone. Connie, Sarita, and Tess, thank you so much. And if anyone watching has any questions, please reach out to us. Happy to help anytime. All right, everyone. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick.